Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, as always presented by our good friends over at ScentLock. I am joined by one of my favorite dudes, by one of my crazy redneck buddies, Mr. Matt Jennings. Matt has went on an absolute killing streak this year. Most recently, a deer that he shot at 110 yards with his bow. I wanted to have Matt on and just kind of discuss the ethics behind that. Is it ethical? What goes into the decision making on when to shoot a deer that distance, or if to ever shoot a deer at that distance? We talk about a lot of things. We recap his season. We talk about some of his favorite hunts so far. We talk about some late season tactics and how to get in on them late season. But most importantly, we just cover decision making when it comes to the ethics of hunting, specifically with archery equipment. So, guys, I hope that you listen to this. I hope that you tune in. The goal behind this is not to change your mind behind shot distances. The goal for this episode is not to convince you that long shots are okay, because, spoiler alert, I take the stance that for me and 99.8% of Americans is an unethical shot. And so we just talk about all those things. We talk about what makes an unethical shot. We talk about what goes into deciding when to shoot, why to shoot. So, guys, I hope you enjoy the episode. I hope you learn something from it. I hope you gain something from it. But, guys, this is the last episode before Christmas. So Merry Christmas, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
Guys, it is not often that a product comes around that is just a game changer. I introduce you to the Paper Tuner from papertuner.com. This is a game-changing paper tuner design that is designed from the ceiling down to help you tune your compound, your recurve, your longbows. Best news of all, it's going to take up zero floor space, and it only costs $75. This is engineered so it's easy to use, very quick to set up and take down with magnetic quick disconnects. It takes you a couple seconds to hang it up, to shoot through your paper, and then take it back down and hang it back on the wall, taking up zero room in your garage, your shop, your basement, wherever you're tuning bows. There's no bulky equipment. It's easy to use. It's fast to use. It's going to cost you $75, and everything that you need to hang it and use it is going to be in one box. It took me about 5 minutes to hang this initially, and then it takes a couple seconds to put it up and take it down anytime I want to shoot through paper. Guys, if you do any kind of work on your bows, or if you just want to ensure that your bows are shooting as good as they possibly can, I would highly, highly encourage you to get a paper tuner from papertuner.com. It's the best design I have ever seen for a paper tuner. So I would highly encourage you, papertuner.com. Go pick one up. Very easy to set up, very easy to use, zero floor space, very quick, very effective. And one of the coolest parts, in my opinion, all around the frame of the paper tuner, it's got what you need to see to know how to move your rest or how to tune your bow in order to take out the tears that you are getting. Guys, go check out papertuner.com. It's a phenomenal design. It's going to change the way you paper tune your bows. Papertuner.com. Get yourself a paper tuner. Mr. Matthew Jennings.
What's up,
man himself, on a killing spree once again. Last year we had you on at ATA.
Yep.
And you had successfully killed, I think it was 1,200 inches of antlers. At the time of recording, you killed another buck after that, but I think at the time of recording, you were at 1,200 inches of antler. And I haven't added it up, but I would dare say you've already passed that this year.
Yeah, more than likely. I just like to play, man. I don't keep score usually. The only deer I did score was Method Man, that mega giant we killed in Oklahoma. And we ended up scoring him just because it was by far the biggest one I've ever killed. And we was all all the guys and all my buddies, and even my mom and dad was asking, "What'd it score? What'd it score?" Because I knew it was up there. I didn't know how far it was up there. It was a whole lot bigger than I thought he was, and it was. I'm still riding on cloud 9 off that deer because he was a deer of a lifetime.
What did it end up scoring?
He ended up grossing 198, and then he netted, I think, 185.
You better get him.
But that was just
young,
some
dude.
redneck. Yeah, I need to. I know a guy.
Yeah. Not. You don't know me. I can't measure nothing. They don't let me have a tape, dude. I'm the type of guy, like, they'll be measuring like a new world record, and they've got like the folding down, like 7 pairs of glasses on. So they can, and I walk up, I'm like, yeah, it's about big enough, Call it. It's a world record.
For sure. No doubt. My buddy, Mr. Tony, he killed a 182 opening day down there, and we ended up scoring him out with a iPhone phone charger cord, and then taking it to a tape measure, and that's how we ended up scoring that deer. It worked pretty good, actually.
So
sometimes
where did you start the season at? Where did your mass murder of the year begin? Like,
we started out Tennessee Velvet, end of August. I think it was August 28th that come in, 27th, somewhere in that ballpark. And we've been running some moultrie edges up there, and we had planted a cornfield, and we come in. My buddy Anthony come in a few days before season and knocked it down, and it was kind of stripped between cut corn, and then we had a little clover field right next to it. And man, it was just picture perfect as you could ask for. And we got there the day before and scouted, and they was doing just like, you want them to, walking right in front of the Maverick and everything else. And next day rolls around, it's 105 degrees. Weatherman saying, heat warning, everybody stay in, drink plenty of water. And we're sitting in this ground blind, 120 degrees. And it was slow starting off with compared to what it's been being or what the cameras had been telling us. And lo and behold, about hour and a half, 2 hours before dark, man, they just started piling in. And we was going after a big, heavy 8-pointer or the G2 buck. And there was so many deer, the 8-pointer come out first, and I thought he was another deer. And by the time I realized it was him, we done lost our window to shoot him. And then I heard Jason say, he said, right there's G2 buck to the right. And he comes wheeling in about probably 30 yards, quartering to me, which I don't like to take that shot. But we ended up getting it done up there, man. Kicked it off right.
Yeah. I would say so. You opened up the floodgates, and here they come, dude. And then it's just like, here's what I hate about my Instagram in and of itself is like, picture, Matt Jennings dead deer, another picture, Matt Jennings dead deer, picture, Matt Jennings dead deer. Like every other one is like Matt Jennings with another dead deer. And I'm like, gosh, dang.
I mean, yeah, it's been like that this year, man. It was like that last year. It was like that the year before. And
don't say it's been like that this year. It's all the time.
Everybody said, yeah, well, no, we work for it. I hate to say it, but we have to grind, and it's tough, man. It takes a lot out of you. But everybody said last year or going into this year, I had so much pressure on me. People don't realize, like, you set a plateau for yourself, and people's got expectations, sponsors, fans, and so forth. And I'll never forget, I guess it was about mid-July. I was sitting in my dad's office. Me and him was talking, and he looked at me. He said, son, what's wrong with you? I said, I'm worried, Pop. I said, I don't know if I can outdo last year. I don't know, how to make it better. And he kind of had this smirk on his face, and he said, you'll figure it out. And that's all he said. He said, start off with a pop. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good on paper, but you can't control a wild animal. And about midway through the season, we was doing something. And he looks at me and goes, told you. And like, I didn't even have to ask him. He didn't have to ask me. Like, I already knew what he was saying, And but yeah, man, it's been a roller coaster dream ride for sure this year. Like it's been picture perfect, man. You couldn't ask for nothing no more.
It's fun to watch. Like, I'll tell you that. It is fun to watch. And
Man,
it's
you
exciting to
better get
see,
your
that's for
butter
sure.
and put on your popcorn.
Yeah. Yeah. I just like watching I like watching specifically for the stupid redneck sayings, you know? That's my favorite.
Why they got to be stupid, man? They're clever.
I didn't say they gotta be. That's just how you make them. I mean, they don't have to be. So you don't have to make them that way. No, but I like them. I mean, it's like my favorite portion of the whole thing, dude, is when Matt Jennings kills a deer and something redneck comes out of his mouth. You know, it's like,
yeah, you never know,
when
man.
that's when you can tell Matt Jennings is at his happiest, is when he's taking the life out of something. You know.
I'm happy for about an hour, then I'm worried about the next one. As bad as that sounds.
Yeah.
And,
now, what was next? Because you have went on a kill. How many bucks have you killed already this year?
I think we killed 8. Yeah, 8.
Gosh dang.
Had a good stellar year, man.
List them off. Where at?
Tennessee, killed 2 in Oklahoma, killed 1 in Georgia, killed 1 in Kentucky, 1 in Missouri, 1 in Illinois, and then 1 in, that's it. So 7.
All right. So obviously Oklahoma was the biggest deer of the year. So not necessarily biggest deer of the year, but what was the most exciting hunt of the year?
Oh, man. They all been, dude, just banger this year. Like every hunt that we've had, like from production standpoint, anything, shots, I mean, just different camera angles, anything. Each hunt, I'm like, man, we can't do no better than that. Like, there ain't no way. It's just too perfect. And then the next one rolls around, and I'm like, dude, it looks just as good or better, you know? And then it's progressed and progressed. And it's just like, wow, man. Like, I look back when I first started, and I'm like, holy moly, man. Like, we're here. You know, we ain't coming no more. We're here.
We out here now.
We out here, son.
Now, just so everybody knows, we're gonna get into it a little bit, but by this point, I don't know if the floodgates have opened yet or not. But Mr. Matt Jennings put a 110-yard shot on a whitetail. So we're gonna dive into that here in a minute. But I do want to talk briefly about late season tactics. I've been getting a lot of texts, a lot of emails, a lot of questions on Instagram. It is now December 20th. We are in the heart of late season. So what's your late season tactics? If a guy is looking, and I'll just word it as the last guy that texted me. The last guy messaged me. He said, dude, all I hunt is public ground. You can't feed in Missouri. You can't bait in Missouri. How do I find these deer? How do I kill them? And I just said, well, I've got Mr. Matt Jennings coming on the show here in just a little bit, so we'll tackle that topic right there. So a guy's looking at a piece of ground. It's late season. How do they go about killing a buck?
Man, it just varies. This year has been the most screwed up year I've ever been a part of. Like the weather, just, I mean, everything in general ain't nothing been right about this year. Like it's been, it's just been a whirlwind. One day it's 80 degrees, one day it's 20 degrees, next day it's 90 degrees, next day you got tornadoes and it might snow. I mean, you never know. And it's got the deer so confused, and it's got us so mentally exhausted because at the end of the day, like November, deer are still going to do deer things, regardless if it's 80 degrees or 10 degrees. Yeah, if it's 10 degrees, they might do it more, but it takes a bigger toll on the hunter, on the mental state that, man, they ain't doing their deal. You know, they're still doing it somewhere. You just got to figure it out. But man, late season tactics, like right now, I would say Definitely 100%. If you got, cell cameras, that's one of our biggest tools in our arsenal, because being a daddy of two little boys, time's limited. And I got them multi-mobile spread all around the world, and they help me decide what time frame I need to be there. And, it closes the gap for me instead of driving 12 hours, which everything's still on a limb, but it kind of helps me narrow down, hey, this is where we need to be going. This is how we need to be doing it. But late season, man, honestly, I would say scout more than hunt, and don't go in the mornings, because you're going to blow them out, and set back at a forward observation spot, in a stand, in your truck, whatever, with your spot and scope or Knox, and just kind of get a feel for what the deer are doing, because they should be hitting grain right now. If you got grain, that's what I'd be setting on. And then they should be transferring them at greens, so forth. They're going to be rotating back and forth. And then if you got like the acorn crop, it was just gnarly this year. I've never seen so many white oaks in the woods. And
that's true. And that's what, a lot of the guys,
hurt a lot. That's been rough.
Yeah. A lot of guys that are saying it's been a terrible hunting year, those deer are just staying in the hardwoods, man. They're not coming out. They're not coming if you've got a food plot, the deer have not been using it. I almost promise you. Doesn't mean the deer have disappeared off your property. But I talked to one guy, and this guy's a very successful hunter. Kills booners every year in several states. I'm not going to name any names, but, and I was talking to him about his property in Kansas, and he's like, dude, I've had a food plot. He said, I've had, I want to say 5 acres. He said, I've had 5 acres of standing beans, and I haven't had one picture of a buck in there since whenever, we'll say October 30th, October 29th. So not one deer has entered that food plot since the 29th. We're talking standing beans in Kansas. I mean, that's just picture perfect food plot. But the deer are just locked up in those hardwoods because of exactly what you just said. It's been a crazy good acorn year. And it's thrown off a lot of what you normally do to hunt. I mean, it's thrown off a lot of normal spots. And that goes back to, I just want to encourage people to never hunt the memory of a property. And what I mean by that is, just because that's always how you've hunted that property doesn't mean that's how you need to hunt it this year. Get it. If we're talking a month ago, get in the acorns and get a tree stand in the acorns. Don't hunt that property like you've always hunted it before. It's not going to work, because this year the acorns have been different than I've ever seen them in Kansas. But yeah, late season, skip the morning hunts. I never hunt in the morning. Unless, it would have to be a very particular type of property, but I never hunt in the morning. Hunt the late season, find whatever food source you can find, and sit over that food source. Yeah, absolutely. But it can be difficult, especially if you're talking, this gentleman that's talking public ground. That can be difficult, man. Those deer have already been boogered up. People have already went in there marching around with shotguns and rifles, and they've been shot at. They've heard shots. They've had guys walk through their bedding areas. I mean, they've seen everything this year already. And so late season on public ground is really hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Do you do a lot of public ground hunting?
I've done some. I've killed some deer on public land. I've just never been public with it, I've killed a lot of big deer in Illinois on public ground, and but I've just never, I've never went public with it, because I didn't really want nobody to know where I was at. And but
never went public with the
probably
public,
one of the biggest. That's right. I don't want hunting public, then put that one out there with a banner. So, but I would say probably one of the biggest tips on public ground, and this is a big trick. I mean, I've used it a long time. If you know an outfitter that's close to that public ground, usually they got land that's butted up around that public ground, and they're going to be posting trail camera pictures, and you can see what them deer are doing and so forth. And everybody thinks, on public ground, you got to go 50 miles back in there, man. That ain't the case. Like, I've had buddies that hunted, 50 to 100 yards off the road and killed some of the biggest deer I've ever seen come off public ground, just because all the other hunters was pushing them deer back out to them, or the other hunters across the road was pushing them across the road to them. And I would say that probably one of my biggest tips for public land hunting is see what's around there, see what outfitters are around there, or, do your research on it and kind of go in at that angle.
Yeah. Where's your favorite? Because you hit some particular states in the late season, if I remember correctly from last year. Where's your favorite places to hunt in the late season?
Oh man, I love them all, to be honest with you. I meant probably Texas, just because it's my vacation and they're rutting down there late season.
Yeah.
And everywhere else is slowed down. And we can go down there and lay down some good stuff and, experience the rut pretty much for 2 months, because I feel like I hunt the rut basically from mid-October till the day Alabama closes through February, because I'm at different does.
So where are you getting the rut in October?
That deer I killed in Missouri, I killed him on October the 30th. First day I hunted that place. We drove up on the 28th all night long. Got there on the 29th that morning. It was 25 degrees. It was raining. And we slept till about 1 o'clock, and it was still raining. Well, I have no stands on this property. I've never seen this property. I've never touched it. I ain't got a clue. And I ain't even never looked at a map on it. And I sent a few trail cameras up. Been around. I had some decent deer on it, nothing crazy. And we went in that joker, me and Jason, and I scouted the best I could in the rain and found this big white oak tree, kind of just a gnarly pinch point funnel, and got jacked up in that thing, man. The next day at 3 o'clock, killed a 158 11 pointer out of it.
Dang.
And then didn't go back.
So for a guy who hunts pretty much year round when hunting seasons are open, if you had to pick, and I'm going to give you two different scenarios. I love asking these two questions. If there's a specific deer you want to kill, like there's one buck that you're trying to go in and kill, and I'm going to give you 3 days to go in and kill it. The exact, a span of 3 days. What 3 days are you going to go in and try to kill him?
What state we in?
We'll say Midwest.
I'd say probably, depending on the moon phase, I would say either early season, the opening first 3 days, or late season. Because you can't pattern no deer during the rut.
Okay. And then if I'm going to give you 3 days to go in and kill any deer, like I just want you to come out with a mature buck dead, what 3 consecutive days you're going to pick then?
September 1, September 2, September 3.
Really? So you're going early season even for any buck?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, that's a no-brainer, dude.
I hate early season with a passion, though.
Well, I can say this:
it's
tough, it's hot. Yeah, it's 1,000 degrees. It's rough. Like that deer we killed in Tennessee in that blind. Jason's got his little boy shore red silk shorts on. Like it's that hot. Like, I mean, it was brutal. But the thing is, if you do your homework and do it right and sit back at afar and put the pieces to the puzzle together, you can usually kill that deer on the first set. Like, it should be open and shut case. Like, it should be a script pretty much. I mean, you should be able to go in there and kill that deer. There ain't no if and, about it. And like this year, for instance, in Kentucky, up at Whitetail Project, my good buddy Alex, we was up there hunting, and season come in on Saturday. I could have shot a 170 inch. I think he was a 9-pointer. And lost camera light. I think I did a reel on it. It was on the scent lot page. And the next evening, I could have killed another one, major. Hunter Phelps ended up killing that deer, and camera light just wasn't good enough. I could have wheel pinned him if I'd have wanted to, but it wouldn't have been the footage that we needed to be able to do our job correctly. And out of, I think he had 14 hunters in starting Monday. In a 4-day span, out of 14 guys, 12 killed and 2 shot, 1 missed and 1, not fatal hit. And like, these are deer from mid 70s to 40s. They wasn't, 120s, 130s. These was good solid deer, And this shows right there, if you're allowed baiting states or, so forth, you can really, really, really better your chances at a really good deer.
Yeah. So I've always said, if there's one deer I want to kill, like if you've got that one big, perfect, typical 10 that you want to kill, do it in the late season. Now, and what you said is absolutely perfect. Early season as well. It's going to work the same. Because those deer are just super easy to pattern early and late season. I just hate hunting early season because I like the cold. So hunt that deer in the late season. So if you're going to give me 3 consecutive days, make it the last 3 days of December or the 27th through the 30th or any time really in there. Give me those 3 days to kill that one particular buck. Now, if you want to say, Dylan, go in and kill any buck, like, we don't have this property. There's not one particular deer you want to kill. I'm going to pick like November 10th through the 13th through the 16th, somewhere right in there, where bucks are going crazy.
For sure.
And what you said is perfect. If there's one buck I want to kill, the rut's not the time to do it because I have no idea where that buck's at. He might be 2 miles away on another property. But if I just want the chance of a buck coming by and shooting him, the rut.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Because, usually you're going to kill the neighbor's deer. But, for instance, like we was in Illinois after we got done in Missouri, and we was hunting this one farm, and we was hunting a mega giant. Like, he was probably, I'd say, mid-80s or 90s. He was absolute hammer. And we got out one day to go get some lunch. And there was this little bitty finger across the road about a quarter mile down. And I seen a deer standing on the left side of it. And it was a doe. And I could tell right off the rip by the way she was standing, she was in heat. And I seen another deer to the left of her. And I threw my binoculars up, and it was a deer I was hunting. He was locked down with her in that little bitty, clunk of woods. And he was absolute, he was a hammer, Yeah. And which the rut, when we was up there, it was, when I killed that deer, I think it was 75 degrees when we walked in the stand that day. And I ended up rattling that deer in to the base of the tree. Couldn't shoot him because he was too close. He walked down. I give him about 15, 20 minutes, and I hit the horns and hit that old Woodhaven, and he come right down Death Boulevard, and we blistered him at 19 yards.
Guys, I'm an arrow junkie. I love arrows. And I have found a fondness for deer crossing archery. Everybody makes a good arrow. I'm not saying that anybody out there makes a bad arrow, but what really sets deer crossing archery apart is when I call them, I'm going to get the owner on the phone. I'm going to get the guy that's building my arrows on the phone, and they're going to walk me through a complete custom build. They're not shipping me a box of arrows that they ship out to everybody. I'm going to pick my knot colors, my fletching colors, my wrap colors, the fletching configuration I want on the arrows. Not only that, I'm going to walk him through my setup. I'm going to walk him through what I'm looking to get out of this setup. I'm going to tell him total arrow length I want to be hitting, total arrow weight I want to be hitting, total insert-outsert weight I want to be hitting, FOC, and he's going to custom build a set of arrows and send them to me. My arrows aren't going to be best for you. Your arrows aren't going to be best for me. We need custom arrows. Deer Crossing Archery builds those arrows custom for you, and they always perform. Their silencer shaft is my favorite arrow on planet Earth. I've shot 40 plus animals with that arrow. It always performs. It always blows through the animal. I always get great penetration. It's a micro diameter shaft. They do have a full line of shafts. The new Rupture arrow is a phenomenal arrow. I shot a deer with it this year in Missouri. I love their arrows. Guys, I would highly encourage you to check out Deer Crossing Archery because You don't have to go to a box store and buy a set of arrows that are just made from the factory. You can get arrows custom made for you that are going to work best for you and your setup. Guys, use code hunting101 to get a discount at Deer Crossing Archery. I would highly encourage you to check them out. They are phenomenal. At what point do you start really calling a lot?
In the Midwest, man, as soon as I get there in October, really, if you want to know the truth, like I think it's effective because I think everybody misconcepts the rut. What I think is everybody thinks, man, November 1 ought to be bumping. That ain't the case, man. That is not the case. I think them deer on that last full moon or red moon in October, some select few does come into heat, and your biggest deer, it sets them off.
Are going to get there first.
And that gets the party started, you know? And just like that deer I killed on the 30th.
Go ahead.
The deer I killed on the 30th, he was locked down. Like, he was locked down. He would not leave that doe. And only reason I killed that deer.
Oklahoma? Kansas? Where was that?
No, Missouri.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. And
now,
like he was locked down.
That's one thing I don't think a lot of guys put a lot of thought into, though. Those first does that come into heat.
No, because it's not publicized. You know, nobody talks about it. Everybody thinks it's the law. That's some of the best hunting there are.
Exactly. But if you think about it, like in terms of, and dude, I try to simplify everything. Deer are not a complicated creature. And I try to simplify, like the hottest chick in the bar, who's going to get him? Who's going to get her? The biggest, baddest dude in the place, you know? Same is true with that first hot doe. Well,
you're right. Right.
You know, same is true with that first hot doe. Who's going to get her? The biggest, baddest dude on the place, the old, mature bucks. Yeah. So those first does that come into heat, that's your best chance of killing that old, mature, big deer, because he knows, like he knows she's mine. You know, I've got her, dude. I'm going to push these other little deer around. They'll be chasing her all year long. You know, I'll let them run her down, you know, November 15th. She's mine for now. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And that for me is the best time to kill. Again, we're talking any mature buck. We're not talking about nailing one buck down. But to kill any mature buck is when those first couple does start going into heat.
Yep, 100%, man. I've seen it. I've been in many camps, and that last week of October, there's one lucky sucker that sets on a field that's got a hot doe on it, and they're going to come out with a 190 or 200. I've seen it, you know?
Yeah.
And it just gets overlooked. And by the time November starts, some deer been locked down.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, you know, you get into the middle of November, don't even call. Like, and I say that, like, you get to the middle of November and those bucks are with hot does, you're never going to call a buck off of that hot doe. He's got the live thing right there. You don't leave a hot chick to find another hot chick. Like, you know, that's that's just marital advice there, homie. You don't leave one fine piece of tail.
It's tough. You want to. The redneck inside you wants you to blow that sucker till you blow the reeds out of that call. But at the end of the day, it ain't going to do nothing. The only thing I will say, if you're running a decoy, that's your only option when they're full blown rut, to pull that deer to you or to pull that hot doe to you, because she's trying to get away from the deer that's chasing her. If she sees him, she's like, hey, we got a little competition here. Maybe he can detour this where I can go hide. And that is, like, we done that some this year, and it worked. Like, I was running a bedded doe and a buck with one horn, and it worked great. No calling. I mean, they was coming to the calls, but at the end of the day, you really didn't have to call.
Yeah. And that is, you know, that's 100% of the reason why, like, I like to call end of October, and I like to call end of November, 1st of December, because those deer are very, very, you know, if I can make that buck think, all right, I've already got a hot doe over here. He's going to come in. I found the first one. He's going to come in. And later in the rut, if I can make that buck think, well, wait a second, there's still a couple hot does over there, I can make him come in. But dude, just last week in Oklahoma was the perfect example of this. I had a really, really nice, mature, he's probably mid 140s, low 150s 8-point, and he was on a hot doe.
Big deal.
And I tried everything I tried everything under the sun. I grunted at him. I rattled at him. I snort wheezed at him. I peed from the tree thinking, well, maybe if he was only 70 yards away, but just chasing her all around, you know? And I tried everything. And he never even looked at me, dude. And we're talking 50 yards away, and I'm snort wheezing at the guy. Never even looked my direction. Why? He's got a hot doe in front of him. Now,
he's occupied, man.
He's occupied. You fast forward that a week, and he's no longer with that hot doe. If I can make that buck think, dude, I've got one last chick over here, he'll come running.
He's coming. Yep, ain't no doubt. Because that last deer that I killed in Oklahoma, Tyson, I killed Method Man on October the 13th. I think it was on the 15th, 16th. Big cold front come through. Everything was right, you know, and I was sitting in the same place where I killed Method Man, and me and Jason just was talking the day prior. Man, we ain't really seen no does out of this spot. Well, that morning, man, the floodgates of does opened up. Didn't see many bucks like we've been being. And Tyson hadn't been there since probably mid-August. And soon as it cracked daylight where I could see through my Hawk Knox, he was standing in the wheat field. And I was like, really? Last year I was expecting to see. And he made a big loop around us. Them does was in, and 8:30, 9 o'clock, man, he comes out of the woodlot, buddy. And you would think, if you didn't have a calendar, you would think it was November. Like, he was lip curling, grunting, he was all in. You know, he was wide open. And I tried to shoot him twice that morning, and I couldn't get him to stop. And it would and I actually think I forgot my rangefinder in the truck or something. And I had my rangefinder, and he was a good ways out there, and it wasn't meant to be that day, you know? So we ended up watching him run these does for 10, 15 minutes, and then he went on his way.
So what hunt, what deer, what state did you work the hardest for it this year? Like, just absolutely grinded it out, pounded it out, went through everything. What state was that?
Kentucky, 100%.
I knew that was coming.
Ain't no doubt. That sucker's had my number for the past 2 years. Like, it has with me. Which, I mean, we did. I mean, honestly, I think I had it so good in Kentucky for so many years. Like, I went, I think, 15 years. I punched a tag in Kentucky, and the most it ever took me was 3 days. And I felt like we was going after the hardest freaking deer there was to hunt, you know, and it just wouldn't go our way. Like, I don't care what you do, if it's not meant to be, it ain't happening, Jack. I don't care what you do. And like, even on this past trip, first evening had a 150-inch plus 10-pointer just beelining right to us, right at dusky dark, coming across the wheat field, coming to the Big and J pile, and wind switches. Pressure's falling. He gets to probably 120 yards. He stops. He kind of looks around, and he keeps coming. I said, okay, we beat him. And there's a little bitty divot in the field. And he hit that divot, and I'm assuming my thermals was catching that divot, shooting through that field. He locked up. He didn't booger. He didn't blow. You just see him kind of just do that for just not even an eighth of a second. He never looked around. He turned right around and fed off and hit the ditch. And I'm sitting there about to break my bow in two. Like, man, like, how many is that? You know, done us like that up here, big deer. And you know, it's very freaking frustrating, especially when you're doing it for a living and you can't get it done, and you know it's there and it's right there in front of your face and you can't do a freaking thing about it. Like, that's so aggravating. And then Like I said, the weather's been, messed up. It was 70 degrees late season, had a dang tornado one evening. It was hailing. It was just pretty much every odd was against us, which, that's fine, but it made it tough. And we started hunting another deer and had a close encounter with him. He's walking down, hits the ditch, kind of looks around, knew something wasn't right, turn around, walks off. And he was probably 140, 150 inch 10-pointer. So I moved the stands the next day at lunch, get in them that evening, 10, 15 minutes before dark. Here he comes. He's going to walk by me at 15 yards, just like he's supposed to. And wind's hitting me in my face. Like everything's perfect. I'm clipped up, ready to rock. And a deer 3 ridges over starts blowing. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And this deer locks up. And I need him to walk about another 10 yards for me to shoot him because I didn't trim it that good because, it was just kind of a hang and bang type scenario. And instead of him walking where I wanted him to, he turns and walks down the draw and stops at about 60 yards. And I got one big limb in my way covering his whole body. And I can't do nothing about it. And I sat there and watched him eat some acorns and, lick his tail and go on about his business. And I was at my breaking point, I guess. Like I'm about the most positive person you meet. And I'll play till I win because I don't like getting beat. And my wife called me and my boys, they was giving, mama being at home with 2 little bitty babies, that's rough on mama. And she called me. I told her, I said, I'm probably coming home tomorrow. And her exact words was, she said, well, if you think you can kill one, go kill it. And that night, Alex, he come over and hung out with us. And there was a deer daylighted on a wheat field. And, which is muzzleloader season, we're already behind the 8 ball. It's 60 degrees, muzzleloader season. And, we're hunting with a, Cherokee Outlaw bow, and so it ain't looking good for the home team at this point. So he tells me, I said, man, I'm probably going to go home. He looks at me and he goes, no, you're going to go kill this deer. I said, well, how far is that shot? It's probably 60 yards. It's okay. No problem. We get there. It was a little bit further than what we thought it was, and it just, it was just one of those things, man, where I had to make something happen, and we did.
So how far is a little bit further than 60?
Last time I ranged that deer, he was 110.5 yards. And I cranked that old trophy ridge out of real estate on tape. And, which, I practiced for that, man, like people, some people's going to love it. Some people's going to hate it. And
all right, so let's just address it. Let's just address it because that's the first thing I told you when you called and told me that. I said, there will be people who rake you across the coals for this shot. Did I not tell you that? So what do you say 100%. To that guy? And I'll tell you my standpoint on it here in a minute, but what do you say to that guy who's going to say, dude, you're an unethical piece of trash? And, what are you going to say to that guy?
Anything can be ethical if you train for it. A 40-yard shot to a person that practices at 20 yards max can be unethical. Shooting a deer, on certain scenario angles is unethical for some people. It's about like a Democrat. They got their own opinion. And the way that I look at it, I practice at 150 yards pretty much all year long, man. Like the shortest I'll shoot during the summertime is 100 yards. So when a 50-yard shot rolls around, it feels like it's 15 yards. And
yeah,
like I said, I love those deer more than I love most people. And I would never shoot at an animal that I didn't think I could kill it cleanly, quickly, and, harvest that deer. And like the other evening, it just rode up perfectly. Everything was, picture perfect scenario. And, when I drew on that deer, I feel like I was shooting at 40 yards, honestly, if you want to know the truth. And I mean, we had 3 angles going, and I mean, I was, put the pin where I wanted it, and I squeezed off, dude, and just watched that comet drop in, man. And it was beautiful. You don't see that on a white-tailed deer, I ain't seen many people do that. And it takes true, I'd say, grit and living in that moment and not worrying about what if I miss.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant. You got to live in the moment to make it happen. Stuff like that. You can't worry about that rear view.
Now, let me just start by saying this for everybody out there that's going to comment back and give your thoughts and give your ideas and your, what you think is right or wrong. We don't have enough time in the world to cover all of this. We don't.
No.
I'll say this. Well, let me start by asking you a question. That deer was 110 yards. Your bow's shooting what? 300 feet per second?
Actually, that new Persist, it's on 72 pounds, 28-inch draw, 450 grain arrow, 125 grain Phobia broadhead from Blackwood Innovation. It's shooting 311, 312. Fastest bow that I've shot, I think, ever, honestly,
Wow.
if you want to know the truth. Because when we was dialing it in at the bow shop, getting all the specs and everything, I was shooting it, and I was like, it was syncing it up to the vanes on my arrow. And I was like, target must be wore out. My buddy looked at me, some S, a new target. He said, that sucker's homing. And I was like, well, it might be. And I didn't realize what I was pulling. And when we went to go get the poundage, he's like, you pulling 72, 73 pounds. And I was like, oh, that's why, But I mean, that
now,
new bow
I will
that
say
they've
this
come
too.
out with, man,
You can't tell what you're pulling on that bow. You literally can't.
No.
And I've shot every single new 2024. Every 2024 that's come out, I've shot it. And while yes, other bows might be faster, other bows might be lighter, there was not another bow that I shot that drew as smooth and was as quiet as that Persist. Not one bow.
Oh, I mean,
and that's not well, you're biased. No, I shot all of them with open eyes, and not one of them drew as smooth as that bow.
Yeah. Oh, she's a Cadillac, man. Ain't no doubt about it. The let off, the brake in it, just how it's set up, the new features they got on it, just the way it, fits in your hand. It fits right, and it's your tool, and you got to have confidence in your tool to do your job. And that's one thing I told Caleb to tell the engineers, whoever built that bow, I said, you tell them boys they did a hell of a job. I said, because it's spot on.
Yeah. So anyways, the point I was going to make, so at 311 feet per second, it took that arrow 1.06 seconds to hit that deer.
Yep.
Here's what I know a lot of guys are going to say. And I'm just playing devil's advocate. I consider you a good friend of mine. I'm not bashing you by any means, because I'm going to tell you my standpoint on this entire thing here in just a second. I just want to get this all out there. It takes 1.06 seconds for that arrow going 311 feet per second to hit that deer that's 110 yards away. What are you going to say to the guy that says, well, it doesn't matter if you can make that shot? In 1.6 seconds, that deer can already be 4 yards away. Like, not only can it duck the arrow at that point, it can be 3 yards down the road by the time it gets there. So no matter if you can shoot a target at 110 yards, that you can't control what the deer does in that 1.06 seconds. So how can you guarantee that it's going to hit where it's going to hit in that 1.6 seconds?
Honestly, I judged that deer's body language. Like, I sit there and look, I let him get to that chum pile and relax. He looked around, he wasn't on pins and needles, because I could have shot the deer at 70 yards, 80 yards, but I'd have had to stop that deer. And I knew in that scenario, at that distance, if that deer's alert, I shot a deer a few years back in Illinois. I rattled him in, and it's on YouTube. I mean, I shot that deer. I think I said it 72 yards, but when I shot the deer, he had moved some. I think he was 80, 82 yards, and that deer had done ducked and come back up, but I center punched him. But he had done started digging. So in my head, all that's replaying. Everything that, muscle memory, everything comes into effect at this point. Like, here's your, you're on the grand stage at this point. And when I let that deer get there, I probably give him 10 minutes to do his thing, get comfortable, relax, and not have a care in the world, because he didn't know I was in the world. And his body language just told me, hey, he's not alert. He's not going to outrun my arrow. And, and I waited till his head was looking to the left, away from me. And by the time he turned his head back toward me, it was done too late.
Yeah.
Now,
that deer, and please, guys, what I'm going to tell you about my next statement, I don't remember the exact yardages and the exact science behind it, so Google it. But that deer had a better chance of ducking that arrow at 70 than it did at 110, because I saw a study put out one time, and it was basically showing the reaction time versus the time it took to hear the bow go off. And a deer has a better likelihood of ducking that arrow. So they were basically giving you the worst window of distances to shoot. And it was like 40 to 78 or 40 to 82 or something like that, or 41, somewhere right in there is the worst distances to shoot a deer, because they're close enough to hear it really well, but they're far enough to where they have plenty of time to respond to the shot. If they're 15 yards in, they hear it really well, but the arrow gets there in 0.04 seconds. They don't have time to duck. And so, yeah,
I think a deer, these bows, they make any bow on the market. Now they're a good bow. I'm not knocking any bow, but I mean, just about all bows are quiet. Some are quieter than others. I don't think them deer hear that bow go off. I think it's the veins on the arrow. They hear that arrow coming, the wind off that arrow. And that's what makes them deer.
You ever been downrange of an arrow being shot?
100%. Like, I've field
it's
tested
a mind-blowing sound.
So
yeah.
It's nuts, man. And if you've never done it, do it, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Like, just stand, offset to a target, and like, it's crazy. I mean, it's
behind
like
a wall or behind a tree or something. Don't just stand beside the target, but behind a big tree, behind a big, something, stand in a safe spot. But to hear that bow, it makes you understand what a deer is hearing. And Matt's absolutely right, because I've seen the video of your deer being shot, and right before the arrow gets to him, he ducks. He wasn't responding to the sound of that bow. He was responding to the sound of the arrow flying when it was 7 yards away or 10 yards away, or however far away he heard the arrow coming. Yeah. And so I think you're absolutely right. Here's my stance on the whole thing. Is it ethical for me to take a shot at a whitetail at 110 yards? Not a chance, because I suck at shooting. Is it ethical for Matt Jennings to take a shot at a deer that's 110 yards away? Only he can answer that question for himself. I'll tell you where ethics come into this, because I've passed deer at 10 yards that I thought, dude, I can't shoot him. He's wired up. He's moving too fast. He's on high alert. He's high strung. There's this in the way. There's that in the way. I don't think I can make that shot. And same as you, I've passed deer at 10 yards only for them to jump out to 40 yards and start feeding, and I send an arrow through them,
For sure.
Here's the question about ethics, and here's the question about, should I shoot this shot or not? If I look at that animal and I think to myself, I can kill that deer 100%, I can kill that deer, then take the shot. Now, to answer the guy's question that says, well, you can't control, that's 1.6 seconds. I'm sorry, 1.06 seconds that gives that deer X amount of time to respond. Well, dude, I've had him duck me at 20. Like, I've had them duck me at 15. I've had deer duck I've seen a guy shoot a deer at 10 yards, and by the time it gets there, it hits him in the spine. Like, a deer has enough time to respond, whether it's at 10 or whether it's at 110. There's so many things downrange that I can't control. There's so many things that are going to happen downrange that I can't control.
I mean, as soon as you squeeze that trigger, I don't care what you do, practicing, training, all year long. When you squeeze that trigger, everything's out of control. And you can't control a thing. Like, you do all you can do to make the best shot you can. But as soon as you squeeze, I mean, it's fate at that point, because anything can happen.
Yeah. So, did Matt make an unethical shot? Only he can decide that. Now, I can tell you again, I'll go back and say I would never shoot at a deer at that far. But that's me personally. That's me. And I've had this conversation with people and, on the recurve side, and I'm like, dude, I would happily shoot a deer at 27 yards. And they look at me like, dude, you're insane. It has to be 15 or closer. Well, really? You decide for you, I'll decide for me. Because if I look at a deer at 27 yards and think I can 100% shoot that deer and kill it, that's what I'm going to do. If you look at a deer at 15 yards and that's your point of, I know I can hit that deer and kill it, that's your ethical shot. Now, again, the smartest thing I was ever told from Mr. Harv Ebers, the gentleman that taught me how to shoot a recurve, he said that very thing, Matt. He said, there's so many things downrange that I can't control. But I'm going to control everything that I can control. And I'm going to make sure I do the best job I can do. Because, 100%. Dude, that deer can duck at 40. That deer can duck at 10. That deer can duck at 110. That deer, there's a lot of things that I can't control about that. But what I do know is that a friend of mine saw a deer at 110 yards, and he thought, I can shoot that deer. He shot that deer, and the deer went, 50 yards? 60 yards? And died?
He died, I think, at 80. Probably 80, 90.
80 yards.
He didn't run
so
far.
That deer died within, a split second of being alive.
And that was probably the best blood trail I've had all year long.
Really?
100%. Like Ray Charles could have followed it. Oh, yeah, dude, it was nuts. I mean, it was like you could see it, nighttime, 15 yards up, 10 yards up. Like, it was painted red, man. Like, it was.
That's cool.
By far the best one I've had all year.
So, man, and again, for me, that shot's unethical. For most 90% of Americans, that shot's unethical. But if you look at a deer and you think to yourself, I can kill that deer, I know, and dude, conditions got to be right. You know that, I know that. Hopefully the listener knows that. I doubt there was 20-mile-an-hour winds. I doubt that the wind was ripping through there and the deer was on high alert. You made sure everything was perfect. You made sure everything was right. So that's all I can say about it. I can't question you as a sportsman, as an outdoorsman, as an ethical bow hunter. You made the shot. That's all I know.
Well, I mean, the way I look at it is, it's a lot to do with confidence and knowing your equipment inside and out and what it's capable of doing. Like, that's the biggest thing, man. Like, you got to know your tools. You got to be one with that bow at the end of the day. And, back up till October, we was in Oklahoma and we was coming out from scouting. And in a wheat field, there was about 10 or 15 big hogs out there. And Jason says, man, I wish we had a gun. We'd shoot one. And I looked at him and I kind of smirked and I said, well, we got a bare bow, bud. I said, we can go kill one. And we stalked these pigs. Wind's blowing probably 15, 20 mile an hour crosswind. It's all videoed, all on camera. I shot it with the Execute 32. And I shot a big old boar at 100 yards in 20 mile an hour crosswind. And I wheel pinned that sucker, because I knew I could. We went and picked that joker up and we had pork chops that night. And the thing is, it's when you practice at that distance and get your mind used to that distance. And you can relate to this. If you practice at 20 yards all year long and you're at a buddy's house and he's got a target set up at 50, you immediately inside your head, you freak out. because your mind ain't used to it and your eyes are not used to it. Your eyes play a big role in all that stuff. It's all about the adjustments and how everything lays out at that moment. So if you train your eyes and your mind at 100 and 150, when that 40-yard shot does come, man, it's gravy, because you're already trained, to at that distance, everything automatically is a lot easier to digest that 50-yard shot, 40-yard shot, 30-yard shot, 20-yard shot, And I'm not saying, just go shoot a deer at 100 yards, by no means. But if you practice and you do get that opportunity, you can capitalize on it instead of letting that deer walk off or so forth, if the conditions are right. Practice how you want to play.
And that's something that, the further that shot distance gets and the further you start discussing and the further you start considering a shot, the more the conditions have to be perfect. Like, if a deer's at 10 yards and there's a 20-mile-an-hour wind, I'm going to rip one right through it. If there's a deer at 20 yards and there's a 15-mile-an-hour wind, I'm going to zip one right through it. But the further you get out and the further you start talking about making these shots, the more that everything that deer does, every way he's moving his head, every way he's licking his nose, every way he's looking around which way deer are coming from. And, everything that deer is doing, every gust of wind, all of that stuff has to be more considered the further out you get. That's why I immediately told you that was a good answer, as far as looking at that deer's body language and knowing, like, the deer wants to be shot. Like, there's just deer that want to die, and that deer wants to be shot. He's perfectly calm. He's perfectly cool. He's collected. He's not, he's also not moving around a lot. And that's another thing. Like,
he played the part.
Yeah.
He played the part.
I'm very picky about the nonprofits that I will support. I look into them a lot. I don't just jump in and support anybody that says we're a nonprofit. I met a friend of mine. His name is Jim Mesh, and he runs a memorial fund, a scholarship in his brother's name, the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship. And what they do, they have a passion for getting kids involved in outdoors. So they host these events around the country to get kids introduced to hunting, but also to raise money for their scholarship fund, which is the John V. Mesh Scholarship. And what that is that's a scholarship that if any student is going into a field of conservation study, they can apply for this scholarship. And it's a substantial scholarship. That's another thing. If they say we're a nonprofit and we do all this and then they give, $1,000 scholarship, then you're like, well, where does the rest of the money go? But they give a very substantial scholarship to a student every year looking to go into a conservation field of study. So guys, maybe you are a student and you're studying some field of conservation. I would encourage you to apply for the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship. But also, I would encourage you, everybody, to support this nonprofit scholarship fund, whether it's through a one-time donation, a monthly donation, or attending one of their events, or buying one of the things they have on auction at these events. Support a company that's supporting our rights as hunters by furthering our conservation efforts by supporting students who are going into a conservation field of study. Guys, go check out the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship at johnvmesh.org. What's next for you this year, man? Where are you headed to next? Bed?
Man, to be honest with you, we tagged out everywhere except no, I'm already worried about the next one. I'm probably going to go hunting this evening as soon as we get off here. Probably just hunt, man, around home, spend time with family, and might go to Texas 1st of January or Ohio if I get a wild hair. But as of right now, man, I'm pretty much just going to hunt around Alabama and Georgia and try to get it done on our home dirt and, enjoy Christmas, spend time with the family, and starting to get everything going through production and get all the episodes, start editing them and so forth. And, the process of it, because it takes a while, and, make sure it's the best it can possibly be so we can bring it to everybody's, living room and put on a show for them, But right now we're just hunting Bama and Georgia. We'll see if we can't get a sole Alabama deer, hopefully.
I've got a buddy. I don't know if I've called you about him or not, but his name is Rhett Walker. He's a famous Christian singer, and had him on the podcast not too long ago, and he turns out he hates deer hunting. You know, he just loves turkey hunting. And so he was coming to Wichita on tour, and I said, well, hey, let's meet, and I'll get you a bow. And so we got him a bow and got him shooting it good. And now he's like, dude, okay, now I can see why you like deer hunting. Like just even shooting this thing, you know, get him at 20 yards. Like that's a game changer. And now I can see why you would like it. And he's like, so now I want to deer hunt. And he's in Georgia. And I'm like, well, I've got a guy that I promise you, if you guys can hook up, dude kills like 743 deer a year. He'll get you on a deer. So I need to get you hooked up with my buddy Rhett and get you guys on a hunt together.
Yeah.
You're both goofy, dumb rednecks, so it might be dangerous.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'd be fun, but it'd be dangerous. I'll say that.
Oh man. Well, where are you going to hunt at? You going back to Oklahoma, or what you doing? Or
Yep, trying to get back to Oklahoma. I looks like I'm gonna try to get down there on 27th, 28th, 29th, and try to get one kill. But man, the time I was there, I don't know if I've talked to you a lot yet, but dude, when it's early December and it's 70 degrees, like what in the crap are you doing, man? Like it just,
bro. I was there. I feel you.
Oh my gosh. Like the deer don't know what to do. Like I truly think the deer are just completely thrown off. Like the deer have no idea what's going on.
I would say in that category, it's a lot to do with, preparation. That's got to be on point, but you got to have some lady luck in your pocket as well, you know, because the only reason we decided to go to Kentucky was a deer we nicknamed Triple Brow back in early season, which is a hammer. He just randomly daylighted, just out of nowhere. Deer hadn't been there in 2 months. And usually when he daylighted, he'd be there the next day, you know, about a 3-day swing. And so we packed our bags and went after that deer. And then I don't think he's been back since, you know. And it's just one of those things. You got a window to hit it when you can, you know, and try to make the most of it.
That's what I was going to ask you, because you mentioned that deer daylighting and then Alex saying, let's go kill it. What do you, so what are you looking for in a pattern, if you will? What are you looking for to say, I've got that deer nailed down, dead to rights? That's where he's going to be at. You know, one daylight picture doesn't mean that's where he's going to be the next day.
No,
you know, 2 daylight pictures.
It don't mean crap.
So what are you looking for in a pattern?
I ain't seen one this year, if you want to know the truth. Like on a pattern, I try to look at the wind, you know, the pressure, the weather, if it's cloudy, sunny, wind, which direction it's blowing. And if that deer is daylighting just, you know, on that kind of type of pattern, yeah, that's a pattern. But if he just randomly shows up, you know, some deer on a 3-day swing, some deer on a 5-day swing, some deer on a 7-day swing, you don't ever know. But at the end of the day up there, I mean, that was pretty much we went all in. We didn't know if that deer was coming back. He showed up the day before 3 times. Like we swung for the fence, literally. And we just, you know, we felt like that was the best option. And, you know, I listened to my dude and it worked out.
Yeah. I'm still waiting to get up there and hunt with him. You know, we kind of had some stuff nailed down this year, kind of had some ideas. And then the gentleman that I was supposed to go with, he had a career change. And so, but, you know, I'm still looking forward to getting up there, man. And I want to share camp with the old Matthew of Jennings. That way I can borrow them lucky draws and get out there and try and kill one myself, you know?
Man, you know I don't wear no draws. I told you I'd let you borrow my shoes.
Yeah. I still got to make that.
I'm waiting on it.
Dude, I'm excited because here in the next, 1 hour and 40 minutes, if you've seen me, follow me on Instagram, I've gotten this young man. His name is Coda. He's a special needs young man. He listens to every episode, so I know you're listening to this, buddy. I'm so excited because tonight we're going hunting for the first time. He's got himself a bear legit, shooting it good, man. Got it up to about 50 pounds now. So he's shooting it really good, shooting a high enough poundage where I feel comfortable with him shooting a deer. And so we're going out tonight and going to try to get him a deer. So hopefully next week you guys get an update from Mr. Coda. I told him if he kills a deer, he wants to come on the show really bad. Tell him, so you got to kill a deer before you come on my show, buddy. And so if he shoots a deer, he'll be here next week to tell you all about it. So wish us luck, guys, because we're going out here, and I'm so excited, man. I really hope it all comes together for us and we can make it happen tonight. But
that'd be awesome. Yeah, that's good stuff. I know I don't want to wish time away, but I'm biting at the bit to take my boys or, my little nephew Dallas. Like he's eat up with deer hunting. Like he cracks me up. I'll be on the road, and he knows he's 2 years old now, and he knows my number by heart. And he'll call me off a landline at the shop or something, and he'll leave me a 2-minute long voicemail. Uncle Matt, big deer. And I've taught him how to snort wheeze. And he'll snort wheeze after he says, Uncle Matt, big deer. And like he's my dude. Like he's all about it. And Riggs, he's getting there. And like right now, if I knew they could hold a gun up and not hurt their ears, we'd probably go plow down a spike this evening, just because I want to so bad. With them, just experience that rush,
Dude, I can honestly say, like, and I know that when I get to watch my son kill his first deer, that'll far surpass this. But even just having my boy in the blind with me when I shot a deer was like unreal. Like it was just the coolest experience ever. He just started screaming, "We just shot a buck! We just shot a buck!" And I'm like, "Yeah, we did, homeboy." Yeah. And he literally he said, "Dad, I want to eat his heart." And I'm like, "All right, well, sure, I don't like heart, but you can if you want, bud." And so we come home, and I put it in a Ziploc bag, and so like he walks in before me, and I walk in, and Chrissy just goes, "Why does my son have a heart in a bag?" And I'm like, "Because he's a freaking man. That's why." Like,
he's a killer.
So,
that's why.
Yeah. But no, it was unreal, man. And going back to decoys, it's exactly what you just said. It's decoys are a phenomenal tool. When you start getting kids, I told Chrissy, I honestly didn't think that night was going to be great. I didn't think much was going to happen. Deer had really been just slow moving. But I told her, I'm going to set a decoy out. That way, if we do see deer, it'll be exciting. That way, if we do have an encounter, it'll be a fun encounter. And so I set that decoy out, and I quickly realized if I didn't have that decoy, we'd have never killed that deer. Never killed him. Because that deer was so hyper-focused on the decoy that Tucker got away with a lot of movement,
Oh, ain't no doubt. Yeah, I mean, you can pretty much do the Macarena, in a blind or a stand if you got a decoy out and, all attention's on that deer.
You've done it too, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Where'd you go? No more.
I'm still here, man.
Yeah. Well, you black
Just
on
count
me,
your blessings, bro.
Anyway.
Count your blessings. You don't have to look at
I do. I mean, honestly, dude, when I shot that deer, talking about counting your blessings, literally, I just had said a prayer. And I said, Lord, if it's your will, if you will give me an opportunity that seeks fit, and literally I opened my eyes a few seconds later and cut my head to the left and hear that deer come. A lot of people pray for stuff. Good Lord won't give it to you till you're ready. And I learned that because I look back now in my business. I'm going on season 6, and I see stuff that's happening now why it didn't happen 3 years ago because I wasn't ready for it. Yeah. And it's just one of those things where you might get it. The good Lord might give you an opportunity. It wasn't the one you was wanting or wishing for. I would have loved a 30-yard shot, but he seen fit to give me a long shot, but it was, apparently he had enough confidence in me to, so, I mean, And I'm not gonna lie, man, after that post interview, like I got emotional. Like out of all the big deer I've killed this year, that one probably hit the hardest. By far, it wasn't the biggest deer I've killed this year, but it meant more to me because all the stuff that I do when nobody else is looking paid off. And now they get to see it. And if they didn't know me then, they dang sure gonna know me now. And that's one of the biggest things I can say to anybody is you don't get to where you're going when everybody's looking. You get there when nobody's looking. You do the little stuff when nobody's looking. That's what pays off.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's what, a lot of guys, they want to just, and we kind of talked about this last week with Dave Thomas from Bow Hunter Planet about the pressure to want to be professional and to do this for a living. And, so many guys just want to jump to that. And I don't think they understand the amount of
they ain't got a clue.
The amount of commitment you're making, because you've alluded to it several different times this episode, just that professional pressure of, well, I've got to kill deer. That professional pressure of, man, this is my job. Like if I don't do this, then there's a problem. And so you've alluded to that. And people don't count that. Like they don't consider that cost when they're wanting to get into doing it professionally,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And, the thing is, I would still be doing this if I wasn't doing this. Like, I was doing this since when I was a little shorty. Like, I've always done this. This is just what I've done. I'd still be doing it if I wasn't doing it now, and the good Lord's just give me a platform to do something that everybody said that was impossible to do. I've done it. And, like, I feel like I'm just getting started in a way. But, it's just, you can't take it for granted because you never know when it can get took from you, for one. And like I tell all my guys, we stay humble. Like we let our work speak for itself. And, we've been very, very blessed to do what we do and have met the people that we've met in relationships and, and great companies that we're blessed to work with. And, my biggest fear in this industry, if somebody believes enough to put my name associated with their brand, I don't want to let them down at all. Like that's my biggest fear. Killing deer, man, that's just 20% of the game in the hunting industry. Everybody thinks it's about killing deer. It's not. It's 20% of it, if that. It's what you do that leads up to that. Yeah, you got to produce for sure. You got to make a name for yourself. And because everybody gets tired of sunset pictures, but my biggest fear in this game is to let, a company down that I told them, hey, I'm going to do this. And, you don't follow through with it. And I've always been that guy. If something didn't go, I wouldn't say, hey, we got a problem. I'd say, hey, we need to find a solution to fix this because it ain't going this way. So what do we need to do? And I think that's the biggest thing people overlook.
Now, speaking of companies you love, what days and what booths are you going to be hanging out in an ATA? That way, if people want to come and congratulate you, fight you, whatever, they can find you.
They can meet me in the parking lot anytime.
I
would say I really don't know yet. The truth, I'm still scheduling all that stuff out as we speak. I know I'll be there all 3 days.
We're gonna kick it. We're gonna burn down St. Louis, dude.
I hope not. I'm getting old, man. I can't run like I used to, or don't want to anyway, because I feel rough the next 2 days or 3 days or a week.
Well, you just told everybody that you'll fight them in the parking lot, so you got to be down for something.
If they want to fight me, it's hey.
Just so you guys know, he's got that little redneck just twitch to him, like that redneck, just like you don't know what they're gonna do, like just freaks,
Yeah.
Matt, where all can they find you? Where all can they watch you? Where all can they watch you kill all these giant deer? Give them the plug, man.
Carbon TV, YouTube, The Game, Matt Jennings, Instagram, Matthew _Jennings. _100, the game on Facebook, my outdoor TV lives on Friday night, like 9:00, Mossy Oak Go app, and been talking to Waypoint and might be rolling on there soon, and been talking to some other networks about going on there also, and then Hunt Channel TV on it as well. So we're a little bit everywhere, and so we're just, kind of rolling with the flow and just trying to, take it day by day and see because everything, man, in the industry is changing so much. Everything's going to the digital side of stuff. I mean, it's crazy, because when I was little, it was all about, you couldn't wait to get a magazine if you went to a store, it was a magazine
or a DVD.
That's how you, or VHS tape, man. I mean, that's how I learned how to bow hunt. I watched Stan Potts, Greg Miller, and all them OG guys, Waddell, on a video called So You Want to Be a Bow Hunter. I watched that thing, dude, to the tape burnout of it. That's how, literally, I'm not joking. That's how it went down. And because nobody in my family has ever bow hunted. Nobody in my family really hunts. And
you're a pioneer, dude. Look at you.
Man, I wouldn't say all that, but
you're creating a generation of hunter gatherers.
Well, that's what the goal is,
Yeah.
I don't like many people, so I had to create my own people.
That's what I'm talking about. Guys, I know. Cheap, interchangeable blade knives, they're all in the rage. Change your blade right there, and you can keep going. And it's cool. And I have one in my bag, and I like to keep one in my bag. However, there is no replacement for a well-built, hand-forged knife, something that I know is dependable. It's strong. If I pick it up, it's going to be sharp. It's going to be ready to go. These right here are knives built by my good friend Nick Deeker, Nick's Knife Works. And the most beautiful part of this is it's not cut and dry. You don't just pick out a knife and say, well, I guess that's the one I need. No. He built this one specifically to the length that I wanted it. I wanted this to fit right on the side of my binocular harness, so it was always there, always ready for me to grab. He built this one to fit really small in my pocket for an everyday carry. Guys, a good hand-forged knife is worth its weight in gold. Go check out Nick Deeker at nicksknifeworks.com. Guys, go follow Matt. I promise you, there's only one negative thing about following Matt. You will get jealous. You will get envy. Buck envy is real when you follow Matt Jennings. So but go check him out. Make sure and watch for all those redneck sayings that I said I love so much. But guys, find us at ATA. We'd love to talk. We'd love to hang out. We'd love to share stories and have a good time. Most of the time, we'll be found somewhere around Scent Lock or Bear, or somewhere in there, and just hanging out, having a good time. So come find us, kick it, ask questions. Just so you know, Matt mentioned Carbon TV. If you listen to this podcast on any audio platform, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen, or if you watch it on YouTube, the podcast is also on Carbon TV. You can watch the full length video portion of the podcast on Carbon. So go over to Carbon, and we're right there, right along with Matt Jennings. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Y'all have a fantastic week. It's time for me and Coda to go shoot a buck.